Good morning to you, ladies. And say it is a beautiful morning, too. You feel kind of peppy and chippery out there, huh? Well, you relax now from that housework for about 13 and a half minutes because our good neighbor Gene Foster wants to come in and be with you with more of those good recipes. And also, too, to tell you more about Mother's Best Flour and Mother's Best Self-Rising Cornmeal. Gene Foster, on this nice, clear, crisp, cool Friday morning, how in the world are you feeling, huh, Gene?
Just fine, Joe, and you?
Oh, tip-top, Humpty-Dumpty, Gene. Couldn't feel any better.
So I've heard,
Gene, if I feel any better, they'd have to bring me to the hospital, you know that, huh?
Well, let's don't feel any better, and I hope the homemakers are feeling just that good.
And say, Gene, what's cooking on the party line this morning?
Oh, boy, we're really cooking up a storm here in the kitchen,
Oh,
Joe.
man, that fire feels kind of good, too, doesn't it?
Yes, sir. I took your advice yesterday, and I made that fire.
You did, huh?
I really did.
You also take my advice and get the long handles from Mr. Foster, too, huh, Gene, huh?
Well, we're real warm, Joe.
Yes, enough said.
And you know, homemakers, I imagine you've been doing just what I have, getting in those flowers that a little bit of frost might hurt. You know, I have some lovely poinsettias in the yard, and I've been trying to get them in. They bloom at Christmas time. And you know, it isn't too early to start talking about Christmas now, or thinking about it anyway. We won't do too much talking. I want to tell you about that a little later. And I do want to thank Mrs. Dunn from Bessemer. And she has a recipe for panhas. I may be pronouncing it wrong, in which she uses liver and meal. And, of course, I would like to have that recipe. She wants to know if I'd like to pass it up and down the party line. This is just the kind of weather for such a recipe when we use Mother's Best meal in it, and we'll test it and pass it on to you. So very shortly, we'll give you Mrs. Dunn panhas. I may be pronouncing that wrong, but maybe I can look that up and give it to you just exactly as it should be. Now, we were talking about Christmas just a moment ago. You know, early on one of Joe's programs, he played White Christmas. It set me to thinking, you know, for those of us that must do our Christmas shopping a little bit ahead, and I must because with the kiddies we can't get into town just whenever we want to, I was thinking about doing my Christmas shopping an easy way, the Mother's Best way. I was thinking how nice a set of 6 of those lovely Roseanne teaspoons would be for some of my Christmas presents. Inexpensive for me, and yet I know that they will be appreciated. Now, I want to recommend that you get 2 high-quality, genuine silver plate teaspoons today for only 25 cents on a label from Mother's Best Enriched Flour, Meal or Feed. Now, you don't have to get just 2. You can get as many as 6 if you want to. However, if you want to get just the 2, send a quarter and a label to Mother's Best, Box 51, Birmingham, Alabama. You'll be so proud to have the gleam of the silver in this charming pattern on your table. The good taste, the fine luster, the gorgeous detail of Roseanne silverware will satisfy your natural longing for beauty. And don't forget that it does make a very lovely Christmas present. You know, it's easy to collect a whole set because with your teaspoons you'll receive an order blank for any other pieces you will select. Now, don't delay. Send immediately for your first 2 teaspoons of lovely Roseanne silverware. Mail your 25 cents on a Mother's Best label to Mother's Best, Box 51, Birmingham, Alabama. Do your Christmas shopping, or some of it at least, the easy way. Now, on this cool, crisp morning, let's talk about tamale pie. Does that sound good for a Friday night main dish dinner? Or maybe you'd prefer baked fish Creole. We're going to give you both of them this morning. First, let's have the tamale pie. Use 1 pound of ground beef, 2 onions finely chopped, 6 to 8 ripe olives, 2 teaspoons chili powder, 1/2 teaspoon basil leaves, optional, 3 tablespoons olive oil or cooking oil, 1 No. 2 can of tomatoes, sieved, 1 quart boiling water, 1 teaspoon salt, 2 cups of Mother's Best cornmeal. Now let's check again on the ingredients for the tamale pie. It's easy to make too. The kiddies will love this. It's 1 pound of ground beef, 2 onions finely chopped, 6 to 8 ripe olives, 2 teaspoons chili powder, 1/2 teaspoon basil leaves, optional, 3 tablespoons cooking oil, 1 number 2 can of tomatoes, sieved, 1 quart of boiling water, 1 teaspoon salt, 2 cups of cornmeal, Mother's Best cornmeal. Now to make the tamale pie, brown the onion and meat in the cooking oil. Brown the onion and meat in the cooking oil. Add olives that have been cut into small pieces. Add olives that have been cut into small pieces. Add chili powder, basil leaves, and tomatoes. Add chili powder, basil leaves, and tomatoes. Now make a mush of the remaining ingredients, that is your Mother's Best cornmeal, boiling water, and salt. Make a mush of that. A right stiff mush that makes, too. Now line a pan. I like to use a standard loaf pan, a bread pan for this. Line the pan with the mush, building around the sides. Pour the meat mixture in, and then place a layer of mush on the top. Now we place this into the oven, and we bake it for 35 to 45 minutes. I like to bake the tamale pie at about 375 degrees. Bake it until it's well done. You see, we've scalded that cornmeal, that mush, so to speak, and then we've cooked the meat a bit. So that 35 to 45 minutes will be sufficient for cooking. Now that might give you an idea for a dinner meal on a crisp, cool night. If not, baked fish Creole might be in order for tonight. You know, you homemakers who listen to our recipes and household hints are sincerely interested in making a good home for your family and feeding them nourishing, attractive foods. That's why I particularly want to recommend to you the Mother's Best products. Mother's Best enriched flour and Mother's Best enriched cornmeal. Both the flour and the meal come in plain or self-rising, and both types of meal can be had bolted or unbolted. So much for the variety of Mother's Best products. What you are especially interested in, and I am too, is the quality. And here Mother's Best really leads the field. I know because through my work with the Alabama flour mills and their testing kitchens, I've come to realize the painstaking care and expert handling of all our products. Only choice wheat and corn are bought by the mill's experienced buyers. Modern equipment kept spotlessly clean mills the grains to superior texture and whiteness, the kind you good cooks appreciate. And even after all that, we in the testing kitchen make sure Mother's Best enriched flour and meal will meet every test in your own kitchen at home, for we actually bake and cook with these good products. Your own grocer probably carries Mother's Best, but if not, it's worth any trouble it may be to find the splendid flour and meal. You'll appreciate the assistance they give you in setting a healthful and attractive table. So today or tomorrow when you grocery shop, ask for Mother's Best flour or Mother's Best meal, self-rising or plain. Now how about that baked fish Creole? You might like to select a 2 or 3 pound fish, depending of course on the size of your family. Now I like to place the fish in a greased baking pan. Sprinkle it with a little salt and pepper and dot it with a little butter. Now I like to grease that baking pan with some kind of shortening that I'm using so that it doesn't stick too badly. Then I use 1 small onion, chopped, a 1/4 cup of chopped green pepper, 2 tablespoons butter, and a 1/2 cup of chopped celery. Now let me repeat that. I cook all of that together. That's 1 small onion finely chopped, a 1/4 cup of chopped green pepper, a 1/2 cup of chopped celery, 2 tablespoons of butter. Now cook that all together for a few minutes. And then stir into that 1 tablespoon of Mother's Best enriched flour. Stir into the onion, pepper, and celery mixture 1 tablespoon of Mother's Best enriched flour. Now add to that 1 1/2 cups of canned or fresh tomatoes. and 1/4 cup of chili sauce. Stir into your onion and pepper mixture the tablespoon of Mother's Best enriched flour and 1 1/2 cups of canned or fresh tomatoes and 1/4 cup of chili sauce. Now you'll want to season this mixture with salt and pepper. Then I like to simmer that for 10 minutes. Now I bake the fish, say, some 15 minutes, and then I pour the sauce over it and continue to bake until it's done, depending on the size of the fish, some 20 to 25 minutes. Now let that sauce simmer for 10 minutes. Meanwhile, bake your fish some 10 to 15 minutes, and pour the sauce over the fish, and let it continue to bake for some 20 to 25 minutes. You'll find baked Creole fish ideal for a cool night, too. And you know, as I think about recipes that are in the offering, of course there are Halloween recipes that must come up pretty soon, because if you're planning Halloween parties for the kiddies, you'd like to have your recipes in advance. So I'm planning to give them to you in advance. And just as soon as our fruitcake ingredients are on the market, we are going to make our fruitcake so that they may season. Now I have several recipes for fruitcakes that I want to bring you. What we call a poor man's fruitcake, a medium fruitcake, and then the very best fruitcake. You know, we laugh about fruitcake making in our house. I like to make 2 kinds of fruitcake. Those that, when we want a glass of milk and a hunk of fruitcake, well, I have a special one for that. And then for a thin slice of fruitcake served as a dessert, I have a special recipe for that. Those fresh coconut cakes, oh, they're so good now. They're all in the offering. Now, I'd like to say if you would like any of the recipes that I give you over the air, simply drop me a penny postal card. Send that to Jean Foster, station WVOK, and I shall be more than glad to give you any of the recipes that I have given. And, of course, we're going to give you all of those requested recipes, so keep tuned to WVOK for them. And remember this weekend to get Mother's Best products, self-rising flour, self-rising cornmeal, or plain flour, or plain cornmeal. But be sure it's Mother's Best. So until Monday morning, at this very same time, this is Jean Foster saying happy homemaking and have a very pleasant weekend. And now back to Joe.
And Jean, you have a real pleasant weekend too now. Here, don't freeze up on us now.
Well, I won't, Joe. I'll be right here Monday morning.
Swell, Jean. And all of our ladies up and down the party line, I hope you'll be with us on Monday morning for Jean Foster, presented by the Alabama Flour Mills, millers of Mother's Best Flour and Mother's Best Self-Rising Cornmeal. Stay tuned now, friends and neighbors, for Lower Pass.